It all started back in the fall of 2022. I'm Sarah, a freelance graphic designer, and after a messy breakup and a few years grinding it out in a bustling city agency, I craved a change, a real one. I joined an online collective for nature photographers, a community called Wild Vistas, hoping to connect with like-minded people and maybe even find inspiration for a new chapter. That's where I met Leo. His profile was impressive, stunning landscapes, charismatic self-portraits, and a feed full of engaging comments and interactions. He seemed popular, outgoing, and incredibly talented. We started chatting in the group forums, then moved to direct messages. He was witty, encouraging, and seemed genuinely interested in my work and my reasons for wanting a change of pace. He mentioned an upcoming Appalachian Autumn Colors workshop he was helping organize, a small group, a remote cabin in West Virginia, a week of shooting and hiking. It sounded like exactly what I needed. He was smooth. He talked about the crisp mountain air, the camaraderie, the chance to reset and rediscover. Before I knew it, I'd paid a deposit. I noticed a few small oddities in our chats. He seemed to know little details about my life I hadn't mentioned, things he must have picked up from deep diving my rarely updated personal blog or ancient social media profiles. Once, he casually referenced a cafe near my old apartment, a place I hadn't posted about in years. When I asked, he just laughed it off, saying he had a knack for details and was interested in my journey. I chalked it up to him being thorough, maybe a little intense, but in a creative, passionate way. I tried reaching out to a few other people listed as attending on the event page he'd sent, but their profiles seemed oddly sparse and none replied. Leo assured me they were more focused on the art than social media, and that it would be an intimate, dedicated group. Against my better judgment, a little voice whispered a warning, but the lure of the mountains, the photography, and frankly Leo's charm drowned it out. The drive down to West Virginia was long but beautiful. The cabin was even more remote than I'd imagined, tucked deep into a hollow miles down a winding gravel road. Cell service vanished about 20 minutes before I arrived. The cabin itself was rustic, charming, but small. And as Leo, who'd arrived earlier, showed me around, the intimate group turned out to be just us. Yeah, last-minute cancellations, he said with an easy shrug, his smile never faltering. A couple got sick, another had a family emergency. Crazy luck, huh? Guess it's just you and me, a private workshop. My stomach did a slow, cold flip. This wasn't what I signed up for. But I was miles from anywhere with no signal and he was already unpacking groceries. What could I do? Then came the real kicker. And it looks like there was a booking mix-up, he said, gesturing towards the single, small bedroom. They only set us up with one queen bed. But don't worry, this couch is super comfy, I'll take it. Unless you prefer? His eyes lingered on me a little too long. The alarm bells weren't just whispering now, they were clanging. But I forced a smile, claimed the couch, and told myself it was fine. It was just a weird mix-up. Just a few days. That first night was deeply unsettling. The cabin was filled with an oppressive silence, broken only by the creaks of old wood and the rustling outside. Leo tried to keep things light, making dinner, telling stories about his travels. But everything felt off. His gaze would linger, he'd stand just a little too close, and his questions felt less like friendly interest and more like an interrogation masked with charm. He kept taking photos. Not just of the scenery but of me. When I was cooking, reading, even just staring out the window. He'd snap away saying, "Just capturing the moment, Sarah. You look so natural, so thoughtful." But it felt like I was being documented, cataloged. I tried to sleep on the lumpy couch, but every creak had me jolting awake. Sometime in the dead of night, I heard movement. I cracked my eyes open and saw his silhouette standing in the doorway between the living room and the bedroom, just watching me. I held my breath, feigning sleep. After what felt like an eternity, he quietly retreated back into the bedroom. I didn't sleep a wink after that. The next day we went hiking. The Appalachian scenery was stunning, the autumn colors ablaze, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Leo acted like nothing was wrong, pointing out good photo spots, talking enthusiastically. But his eyes kept darting towards me. He'd accidentally brush against me on the narrow trail. He kept taking those candid shots. At one point, we stopped at a scenic overlook. While I was setting up my tripod, I saw him pick up a small, flat stone and slip it into his pocket. It seemed insignificant, but in the context of everything else, it felt strange. Later that afternoon, back at the cabin, I couldn't find my favorite lens cap. I searched everywhere. Leo found it later, sitting on the nightstand in the bedroom, a room I hadn't entered since we arrived. "Must have rolled in here," he offered with another easy smile, but I knew I hadn't taken it in there. That evening, I decided to try and set some boundaries. I mentioned feeling a bit overwhelmed and needing some solo creative time. Leo's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course, Sarah. Whatever you need. But don't forget, collaboration can spark amazing things. His tone was light, but his eyes held a glint of something possessive. Later, while he was outside checking the trail cams he'd apparently set up, another thing he hadn't mentioned, I took the opportunity to look through my locked camera bag. Everything seemed fine, but then I checked my personal journal, which I kept zipped in an inside pocket. The small lock I used was still in place, but I had a specific way I always left the zipper, slightly open at the top. It was zipped all the way shut. My blood ran cold. He had picked the lock. He had read my private thoughts. The illusion of a weird mix-up shattered completely. I was trapped in a remote cabin with someone who clearly had no respect for boundaries, someone who was watching me, documenting me, and lying to me. I had to get out. Panic set in, cold and sharp. I had to act normal. I couldn't let him know I suspected anything. I spent the rest of the evening forcing smiles, talking about photography, pretending everything was fine, while my mind raced, desperately trying to formulate an escape plan. The nearest town was miles away and I had no cell service. My car was parked right outside, but so was his. If I just ran for it, he'd easily catch me or follow me. I needed a reason, a believable emergency that would force him to let me go or even drive me out himself. That night was torture. I lay on the couch, every muscle tensed, listening to the sounds of the cabin. I heard him get up again, heard his soft footsteps pause outside the living room. This time I didn't feign sleep. I sat up abruptly as if startled. "Leo? Is everything okay?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. He stepped back quickly, feigning surprise. "Oh, sorry, Sarah. Didn't mean to wake you. Just getting some water. Terrible insomnia sometimes." He didn't sound convincing. I knew he'd been watching me again. The next morning I put my plan into action. I woke up feeling terrible. I clutched my stomach, moaned softly, and claimed I'd been up all night being sick. I made it look convincing, pale face easy since I hadn't slept, shaky hands. I hinted at a history of severe appendicitis, suggesting the pain felt ominously similar. I think I need to see a doctor, Leo," I whispered, trying to look both pained and scared. "Maybe it's nothing, but I can't risk it being appendicitis way out here." His reaction was hard to read. There was concern, yes, but also a flicker of something else. Frustration? Annoyance? "Are you sure, Sarah?" he asked, stepping closer. "Maybe you just ate something bad. We could wait a bit, see if it passes." "No, Leo, I really think I need to go now," I insisted, doubling over for effect. "It feels just like it did before." "I can't wait." He seemed torn. The caring host persona warred with whatever his real agenda was. Finally he sighed. Okay, you're right. We can't risk it. I'll drive you to the clinic in Beckley. It's about an hour away." Relief washed over me, but I had to keep up the act. The drive was tense. Leo was quiet, his eyes constantly flicking to me in the rearview mirror. I kept up my pained moans. As we finally got close to Beckley and my phone pinged back to life with a single bar of service, I faked another wave of intense pain. "Leo, pull over, please," I gasped. I think I'm going to be sick." He pulled over near a small gas station. As he looked away, I quickly texted my sister, code red, WV cabin. "Leo, track phone. 911 if no contact 1 hour." Then I bolted. I threw open the car door and ran into the gas station, screaming for help, telling the bewildered cashier that the man in the car wouldn't let me leave. Leo, seeing me run, hit the gas and sped off, disappearing down the highway. The police were called, reports were filed. They found the cabin empty. Later back home, I connected with another woman from Wild Vistas. Leo had pulled the same private workshop stunt with her in Colorado a year earlier. She'd woken up to find him standing over her bed, holding a knife. She'd only escaped because another hiker had stumbled upon the cabin by chance. He's still out there. His profile is still active. He's still looking for his next muse. Our post-college victory lap was supposed to be epic. Me, Kyle, along with Jason and Marcus, my two best friends since high school, decided on a final summer blowout before real life kicked in. We picked a spot none of us had explored, a remote stretch along Lake Huron, up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. We found a campsite deep in a state park, known for its rugged shoreline, dense forests, and according to local whispers, more than a few ghost stories tied to shipwrecks and the relentless fogs. We laughed off the spooky stuff, packed our tents and coolers and headed north. The drive itself was part of the adventure, the city giving way to forests, the air growing cooler and cleaner. We set up camp just a stone's throw from the lake, the sound of the waves a constant, soothing presence. The first couple of days were perfect, hiking, swimming in the bracingly cold water, sitting around the campfire late into the night, sharing beers and exaggerated stories. Jason, ever the history buff, even brought up some of the local legends. Tales of the Lake Walker, a drowned sailor who supposedly roamed the shores on foggy nights, and strange lights seen over the water. We all scoffed, fueled by cheap beer and youthful bravado. On our third morning we woke up to a world transformed. A thick, impenetrable fog had rolled in off the lake, blanketing everything in a silent, gray shroud. Visibility was down to maybe 20 feet. It was eerie but also strangely beautiful. We decided to walk down to the shore, drawn by the muffled sound of the waves. The beach was rocky, littered with driftwood, and the fog made it feel like we were the only people left on Earth. The water was a flat, gray mirror, disappearing into the mist. We walked along the edge, the silence broken only by our footsteps and the lapping water. It felt surreal, otherworldly. We were joking around, trying to skip stones we couldn't see land, when Marcus suddenly stopped. "Guys, do you see that?" he asked, his voice hushed. We followed his gaze out towards the lake. At first, there was nothing but the dense gray wall of fog. But then, something shifted. The shape. It was far out, much further than anyone could normally stand, yet it seemed to be standing on the water. It was tall, impossibly thin, almost skeletal, and seemed to be draped in dark, tattered rags, like rotting sailcloth or seaweed. It was perfectly still. "What the hell is that?" Jason breathed. "A tree branch? Some weird buoy?" But it didn't look like either. It looked vaguely human but stretched, distorted. We watched it, mesmerized and increasingly uneasy for what felt like minutes. It didn't move. The fog swirled around it, sometimes hiding it, sometimes revealing its gaunt silhouette. We started backing away slowly, a primal fear beginning to bubble up. This wasn't a local legend, this was real. As we backed away, trying to keep our eyes on the figure without showing outright panic, Jason fumbled for the high-powered flashlight he always carried. "Maybe it's just someone in a boat, lost in the fog," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Let's see if we can get a better look." Before we could stop him, he flicked it on, its powerful beam cutting a sharp cone through the thick fog, aimed directly at the figure. For a moment, the figure remained still. Then, slowly, impossibly, it turned. It hadn't seemed to have a front or back before, but now it faced us. Its head, if you could call it that, wasn't turned away anymore. The flashlight beam landed squarely on its face. And it had no face. It was a smooth, pale, ovoid shape, like an overwrought stone. There were no lips, no nose, just two dark, deep holes where eyes should have been, pits of shadow that seemed to swallow the light. As the beam hit it, a sound reached us across the water, carried on the damp air. A dry, rapid clicking like 1,000 insects or bones chattering together. We didn't need another invitation. A shared, wordless terror seized us and we turned and ran. We didn't run towards the open beach but scrambled towards the treeline, hoping the woods would offer some cover. Behind us, the clicking sound grew louder, closer. I risked a glance back. The figure was moving. It wasn't running, not swimming. It was gliding across the water's surface, coming towards the shore at an alarming, unnatural speed. Its thin limbs moved in jerky, disjointed ways, like a marionette with its strings tangled, but its forward motion was smooth, relentless. It reached the shore and didn't slow down, its ragged coverings dragging across the rocks as it glided straight towards the woods, towards us. We crashed through the undergrowth, fog swirling around us, branches whipping at our faces. The clicking sound was sometimes right behind us, sometimes seeming to come from the side, disorienting us. We got separated. I could hear Jason yelling my name to the left, Marcus crashing through bushes to the right. Panic surged. I was alone. I ducked behind a large, moss-covered boulder, trying to control my breathing, listening. The clicking was close. I saw a shadow move through the fog just yards away, that tall, thin silhouette, its head swiveling in that jerky, unnatural way. Paused as if sensing me. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying. Then I heard Jason yell again, further away this time, and the shadow glided off in that direction. Taking my chance, I ran blindly towards where I thought the campsite was. I stumbled out of the treeline a few minutes later, Jason and Marcus emerging from different directions almost simultaneously. We stared at each other, wild-eyed and gasping, then sprinted the last few yards to our camp. We reached the small clearing where our tents stood, hearts pounding, relief washing over us, only to have it ripped away. The campsite was a wreck. Both tents were slashed, long, deep cuts running down their sides, as if made by something incredibly sharp. Our coolers were overturned, food scattered. Our backpacks were ripped open, their contents strewn across the muddy ground. It was a scene of deliberate, vicious destruction. But nothing seemed to be stolen. It felt less like a robbery and more like a warning, or a territorial marking. We stood there in shock, the adrenaline fading, replaced by a deep, chilling fear. What did this? Marcus stammered, picking up his ruined sleeping bag. It wasn't a bear, Jason said, his voice low. The cuts are too clean. And look. He pointed to the ground. In the soft mud around the tents, there were footprints. But they weren't human. They were long, thin, and ended in what looked like webbing. Like a giant bird's or a frog's, but stretched, elongated. They were everywhere, crisscrossing the site, leading from the lake around the tents and back towards the lake. But there were no footprints leading from the woods where we had run. It hadn't followed us. It had come back here. It had waited. We didn't say another word. We grabbed whatever gear wasn't destroyed, stuffed it into our bags, and practically ran to the car. We threw everything in the back and peeled out of that state park, not looking back until we hit the main highway, the fog finally starting to thin under the rising sun. The drive back to civilization was mostly silent. We tried to talk about it, to rationalize it, but words failed us. A prank? A hallucination? Nothing fit. The slashed tents, the webbed footprints, the featureless face emerging from the fog, it was too real, too terrifyingly strange. Back home we tried to move on. But the image haunted us. Jason did some deep dives into local Upper Peninsula folklore, beyond the basic tourist stuff. He found scattered references, old newspaper clippings, and forum posts talking about the Huron Clicker, or the Thin Man of the Fog. Stories varied, but they all described a tall, gaunt figure seen during heavy fogs near the lake, sometimes linked to an old, forgotten shipwreck, its appearance always followed by a strange clicking sound and a deep sense of dread. Some posts mentioned finding strange tracks or having camps ransacked. It wasn't just us. We weren't crazy. But that knowledge brought little comfort. We knew what we saw. We knew it glided towards us from the water. And we knew we'd never set foot near that foggy shore again. Our great post-graduation road trip was meant to be a final hurrah before careers and responsibilities scattered us. Me, Luke, and my best friend since kindergarten, Chloe, had bought a vintage 1980s RV, the Wanderer, fixed it up as best we could, and planned a cross-country journey. Our route took us through the vast, empty stretches of Nevada, a landscape both beautiful and deeply isolating. The Wanderer wasn't exactly a picture of reliability. Its engine coughed, its electrics were finicky, but it was ours, and it represented freedom. We were driving late one night, deep in the heart of Nevada, miles from any town, the highway a narrow ribbon of asphalt cutting through an ocean of darkness under a sky thick with stars. Our fuel gauge was dipping low. We saw a faint glow ahead and breathed a sigh of relief, a gas station. But as we got closer, the relief soured. It wasn't an operational station. It was an abandoned relic, its signs faded, its pumps rusted skeletons. The only light came from our own headlights and a single flickering bulb above a boarded-up door. And parked off to the side, almost hidden in shadow, was an old beat-up pickup truck. It was dark, covered in dust, its windows tinted black. It looked like it hadn't moved in years. Chloe shivered beside me. "This place gives me the creeps, Luke. Let's keep going." But the Wanderer had other ideas. Just as we were about to pass the truck, our engine sputtered, coughed, and died. Dead silence descended, amplifying the vast emptiness around us. "You have got to be kidding me," I muttered, trying the ignition again. Nothing. We were stuck. As I grabbed my flashlight and prepared to get out and look under the hood, I glanced over at the truck. I couldn't see inside, but I had the distinct, unnerving feeling that someone was inside, watching us. "Stay in here, lock the doors," I told Chloe. She nodded, her eyes wide. I got out, the air surprisingly cold, the silence immense. As I worked under the hood, fiddling with the fuel filter, my usual suspect, I kept glancing back at the truck. No lights, no sounds, just a dark, menacing shape in the periphery. At one point, I thought I saw a light flicker inside the abandoned station building, but when I looked again, it was dark. The feeling of being watched intensified. After 20 tense minutes, I managed to get the Wanderer started again. I jumped back in, slammed the door, and got us back on the highway as fast as the old RV would go, leaving the gas station and the silent truck behind in our dust. But the feeling of unease lingered. We drove for maybe 15 minutes, the relief of being mobile slowly calming our nerves. Chloe had put on some music, trying to lighten the mood. The highway stretched out before us, empty and dark. Then I saw it in the rearview mirror. Headlights. Far back but definitely there. Someone else out here, thank God, Chloe said. But the headlights kept getting closer. And closer. And they weren't behaving normally. They were weaving slightly and there were no other lights, no markers, no cab lights. Just those two intense beams. As they got closer, my stomach tightened. It was the pickup truck. The same beat-up, dark truck from the gas station. And it was moving fast. There was nowhere to turn off, nowhere to hide. It was just us and them on this empty stretch of desert. Luke, it's him. He's following us. Chloe yelled, her voice high with panic. I floored the accelerator, but the Wanderer was no match for the truck. It closed the gap in seconds. Its headlights vanished as it pulled right up behind us, so close I couldn't see its grille, only the darkness where it should be. Then it turned its lights off. We were driving blind with this massive dark shape tailgating us. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. We drove like that for what felt like an eternity, in near total darkness, the only sound the roar of our old engine and the thumping of my heart. Then, with a gut-wrenching crunch, it hit us. It rammed our back bumper, sending the RV lurching violently. Chloe screamed. It backed off slightly, then hit us again harder. It was trying to force us off the road. I fought the wheel, trying to keep us steady. It pulled alongside us, its blacked-out windows just feet away. I couldn't see anyone inside. It swerved towards us, trying to push us into the soft shoulder. I swerved back, horns blaring. It became a terrifying high-speed dance in the dark. It felt like it went on forever. Just when I thought our luck had run out, I saw a faint glow on the horizon. Lights. The town? A truck stop? It didn't matter. It was hope. I pushed the Wanderer as hard as it would go. As we got closer, the lights resolved into a small, brightly lit truck stop, a beacon in the wasteland. We roared towards it. As we crossed the threshold from darkness into the bright fluorescent light of the parking lot, I glanced back. The highway behind us was completely, utterly empty. The truck was gone. It hadn't turned off, it had simply vanished. We pulled into the truck stop, shaking and sobbing, and practically fell out of the RV. We told the grizzled night manager what happened. He just nodded slowly, looking out at the dark highway. Happens now and then, he said quietly. That stretch of road, she gets hungry sometimes. Especially near that old station. Phantom truck, some call it. Best not to stop there after dark. We called the state police, but they sounded bored, took a brief report, and clearly didn't believe us. We didn't care. We stayed in that brightly lit truck stop until the sun came up, too terrified to venture back into the Nevada night. We sold the Wanderer for scrap in the next big town and flew the rest of the way home.